Hello and welcome to Linesniper Fight Night. I am your host, Dave Milhouse. Today we are talking UFC Vegas 27, live from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got 13 fights on the card. Hopefully we don't lose too many of them. We know we always do. We always talk about fights that get canceled, but we're going to do our best. We're going to go through the main card. We're going to find you all the value, the best bets to make. We'll sprinkle a little on the prelims, give you our best bets, etc. And we're going to make sure you have a profitable weekend. Cody, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, man, always happy to be on the show. And yeah, I think that last weekend, absolute bloodbath top to bottom. But even going in, there's just a sense and a feeling of, I don't like a whole lot of these spots. This week, I think it's the complete opposite. There's at least 3 or 4 solid plays, I think, in my opinion. A couple good guys, money line, near even money. If you want to chase a couple parlays plus money, but man, I got killed in the parlays last week. So, or parlays and props for that matter. So I think I'm just going to keep it simple. And for that matter, there's a couple money lines I agree with and I like, and I'm looking to hit those.
Well, right on. Let's start it with the main event. We got Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. This is sitting right around a pick'em right now. Why don't you give us the X's and O's? Let's get into this main event.
Yeah, so again, a great main event. 2 highly skilled guys in the division. You got Cody Garbrandt, the former champion. And again, I think it's just the question of, has he recaptured his former glory, his former form? I mean, that night that he beat Dominic Cruz, I mean, he's dancing, he's styling, he's feeling good, he's feeling himself, he's loose. And it's just a career best performance. It's the aftermath of everything beyond that. I mean, he's a coach on The Ultimate Fighter, and he comes off as pretty unlikable. And he keeps dtalking about how he knocked out Dillashaw's own training partner, knocked him out in sparring, and they run it back. And I'll admit, the first fight they run it back, he does drop Dillashaw in the first round. Cody Garbrandt has got all the skills in the world. The one thing that he potentially lacks is his durability. He doesn't have the greatest chin going. So can the guy wrestle? Yeah, the guy was a good former state champion back in high school. Didn't pursue it collegiately, but again, guy's a solid wrestler. Team alpha male training for so long, he's fine there. Striking, he's smooth, amateur boxing background, good hands, good defense, slick, got a whole lot of power. Just like everything, good footwork, everything jives for him. It's that when he gets into these fights, a lot of the time he gets dragged into the drama, and he gets dragged into the moment and the feeling, and he gets into a gun battle, and at some point he gets chin checked and he topples over. So TJ does it, but TJ's best in the world. And then TJ does it again. Again, TJ's best in the world, so it's no problem. And then you see the Pedro Munoz fight, where Pedro uses the leg kicks extremely well, neutralizes Cody Garbrandt. It is a headbutt that drops Garbrandt, causes him to get all panicky and start said gunfight. But again, his leg's getting chopped up. He's starting to get desperate. His best shots aren't doing anything to Pedro. And all of a sudden, he's fighting Pedro's game, and Pedro knocks him out. So he does take a bit of a layoff, and he does come back, and he does beat Rafael Assunção. But you'll start to see a trend. I know you're a numbers guy. So when you look at strictly by the numbers with Cody Garbrandt, he's a low output guy. Now, a lot of the time when you've got that much power, you're touching fools, and they are just falling down. You don't throw 100 significant strikes. You'll only just try to line them up for that big one. But then a lot of the time, if you're not knocking the opponent out, you'll start to fall behind. Look at the last fight with Rafael Assunção. It's almost 2 full rounds, right? Knocks him out with the second left in the round. But 19 significant strikes through 9 minutes and 59 seconds, almost 10 full minutes, 19 significant strikes. The fight before that with Pedro, it's a 1-rounder, 21. But the fight with TJ, 17. The first one, 18. The fight with Dominic Cruz is 25 minutes. It's 5 rounds. He lands 68 significant strikes. And that's his career best for that matter. So, again, he's a low output guy, and I think that Font's going to have a possibility that he's just going to be able to go out. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. He's got a nasty jab on him. Stay to the outside, use the jab effectively, pick this guy apart. If Cody Garbrandt eventually gets desperate, comes forward, then you need to hit this guy. You need to hit this guy flush. I think he does have the power. Going into his last fight against Marlon Moraes, people were actually talking about, well, Rob Font doesn't show very many KOs on his record. More of a decision guy, and he's more of a guy that could outpoint you, but maybe not knock you out. But I tell you what, he looked really sharp in the Ricky Simón fight. The Marlon Moraes fight, same thing. When he gets taken down, he always scrambles back up to his feet. He always makes you work. He's going to come at you. He's going to throw volume. He does throw heat. And same way as he knocks out Marlon Moraes, he does have some sneaky power, enough to, I think, knock out Cody Garbrandt. So looking at the line straight up, again, I think it's a fair money line for Rob Font. But if you want to chase that Rob Font by knockout, he's got 5 rounds to work with. He's got solid cardio. He is 33 years old, but I think he's going to be fine here. And then the last point I want to make is going into the Marlon fight, his last time out, he had taken off like a year and a half and had reconstructive knee surgery. So to me, a big thing that I wanted to see was, how do you come back from that? Again, you're 33 years old, so you're nearing your mid-30s. He he hasn't had an illustrious career in the UFC. He's typically lost when he's gone up at that high level, and he's typically won when he's on that mid level. This is a high level fight. Is he going to pull through here? But I really do think that he's cut the corner, working out with guys like Calvin Kattar on the regular. He's in good shape. He's ready to go. And I think at some point he is going to catch Cody Garbrandt. So I'm going to chase that plus 170, I believe, by knockout Rob Font, and also just hit it straight up Rob Font.
Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting because it's a 5-minute fight, and the styles of these two, I find it hard to believe it'll go to decision. And as a numbers guy, well, the numbers are basically good for scorecard predictions, not exactly for the variance portion of the fight. But when we look at this, I mean, like you said, low output from Cody Garbrandt. The guy's landing 3.3 a minute, gets hit with 3.3 a minute. That's not exactly going to wow judges. The interesting thing about Cody is that 4% of his significant strikes that he lands knock people down. And that is crazy for bantamweight. A lot of power in the hands, and a lot of variance comes from his hands. So it's a weird fight. Like you said, Rob's got a 6-inch reach advantage. He's got the volume. I find it very hard to believe that Cody would find himself ahead on the scorecards. But again, I don't really like this to go to decision at all. So we got to kind of throw away my numbers here. And if we go talent for talent, I would kind of lean Cody. Durability wise, you have to lean Font. But what I will say is this makes for a very interesting live line. We know that Font's got the volume. We know he's going to come out and land more strikes in round one, unless, the fight ends in round one. And at which point, if you're a Cody believer, you can grab yourself some Cody on the live line and get a better line. I have no issue with that. But otherwise, I don't know, man. Maybe just an under 2.5 could have a little bit of value on it. It really just depends, because these guys could look at each other or look at their game plan and go, I got 5 rounds to work. Let's take it easy. If they take it easy in round one, this will definitely go over. If they come out swanging like they normally do, it's going to go under. And it just comes down to the game plan. There's too much variance in the hands and the chin of Garbrandt, and the lack of this data meaning anything, because I don't think it goes to decision. So I don't really have a lot to say on the main event. Slightest lean to Cody. I think he might catch Rob and knock him out. Rob's very durable, so until you start getting knocked out, people don't really think you can be. This is a guy with the kind of hands that could do it, or at least score a knockdown, and that can change a fight. But yeah, for me, I'm just going to pass on this one. Not very interested at all. Let's go to the co-main event. Carla Esparza, Yan Xiaonan. Currently sitting about a minus 125 for Yan Xiaonan. This has been steamed quite a bit down. The soft opener on Xiaonan was minus 180. And that's just been bet all the way back to a pick'em. And now some people are starting to make the comeback on Yan. What do you see happening in this fight? I find it very interesting because it's the total clash of styles. Both people definitely have their paths. So which path do you see having less resistance, Cody? Cody's frozen. So I will answer the question for Cody. Look, Yan's got a 75% takedown defense. She's faced some decent grapplers like Claudia Gadelha. Gadelha went 2 for 10 on her takedown attempts. She's a good wrestler. I would say roughly in the same spectrum as a Carla Esparza. So I'm not expecting Carla to have a ton of success with the takedowns and keeping it down and gaining enough control time. She'll have her moments where she is able to push Yan against the cage and gain control time that way. But real significant dominating control time, I don't know if I see enough to warrant a bet on Carla. Now, when it was plus 160, I did. Now that it's at the current line, I don't. But this is very interesting because Carla's a below average striker. She's landing 2.3 per minute. She gets hit with 2.8 per minute. She's a minus 5% on the striking versus expected metric. On the flip side, Yan Xiaonan, she's landing 6.4 a minute, getting hit with 3.6. That's a 2.8 per minute gap she's leaving on her opponents. That's stellar. And she's doing this with a plus 5% striking versus expected. With a 75% takedown defense, man, this line is so close now. I get why the sharps bet Carla down, but at this point, I'm kind of looking at Yan, and I love this going to decision. 9 of Carla's last 10 fights have gone the distance. All 6 of 6 for Yan Xiaonan have gone the distance. you're getting an over-under of 2.5 rounds, minus 400. That's your 80% probability to break even. You need to hit 8 out of 10. I think that's like severely low. I think this should be more like 83, 85% probability. That leaves a decent amount of value on something that's very probable to happen. I do like this over, and that leads me to think no matter who you like in this fight, because you can make a case for both. But the decision prop sounds much better to me. Yan Xiaonan around a plus 140 by decision. Esparza's in that plus 160 range. Whoever you like, I think you should be looking by decision personally. Bump those odds up. Very, very good chance this goes over, and there's definitely some value sitting on that over. Let's get into the next one here. Cody, you back? You're frozen? You're back? Right
Yeah,
on.
I'm here. Yeah.
You want to touch on the Esparza and Xiaonan?
No, listen, I agree with you, man. If you look at Carla Esparza, all of her fights go to decision, and they're pretty much all close. Her last fight with her Marina Rodriguez is a split, which you can make a strong argument either side. Before that, Michelle Waterson split. Before that, the Alexa Grasso fight, a majority decision. Again, they always go to decision. She's a decision fighter, and they're always close. So if they're going to give you plus 175 as an underdog ticket on her, it's going to be a close fight. So you're going to get your money's worth. And again, she could be on the right end of these split decisions. But now that it is lined up closer to where you want it to be, I got to go with Yan as well. I think Yan's done a really good job for herself, testing herself against the best level of competition right from the time that she's come to the UFC. A lot of fighters will prefer this slow build, but I mean, she's already got wins over Viviane Pereira, Angela Hill, Karolina Kovacevic, and Claudia Gadelha in her last fight, former two-time title challenger. When she does get taken down, she works her way back up. She's strong, she's physical, she's going to be the better striker than Carla Esparza, and I think she's just going to land the more telling blows, which is going to show the judges sitting ringside when Carla's face starts to swell, because it always starts to swell, it's going to just be more eye-appealing for Yan. So she's just going to make sure she stuffs these takedowns, or at the very least, when she does get taken down, work her way back up, cause this to be a striking battle, use that size, strength, physicality, and wear down Esparza. So that's the way I would go. I would pretty much agree with you. And I didn't really want to bet it, but now that it's coming down, it's like very tempting. So I think I'm on board.
Yeah, that plus 140 by decision is calling my name. If that even wants to sniff a plus 150, I think my hand will be forced, honestly. Here's a big boy fight. Justin Tafa, Jared Vanderera. I don't know. I say these names wrong every time. Heavyweight matchup here. Very interesting fight. Bit of a clash of styles again. We know Jared wants to grapple, and we know Tafa wants to stand and bang. Tafa won't even bother even sniffing a takedown attempt. So we don't have to consider his wrestling here. But he does have 100% takedown defense, mind you, against no good wrestlers. So we don't know if it's truly bulletproof like the numbers are saying. And on the flip side, Jared, he's got 100% takedown accuracy. But what is that, one takedown in his UFC career? I mean, we can't take too much from that. This is a guy that was getting lit up on the feet by Harry Hunsucker and got absolutely smashed by Spivak. Now, I know Spivak, look, this guy's totally different style fighter than Tafa. Don't get me wrong. Totally different, and styles make matchups. But I do think the striking of this guy is nowhere near as good as Tafa. If this stays on the feet, it's Tafa all day. He'll probably knock his head off by mid-second round. It's just a matter of, can we trust Justin Tafa around that minus 200 mark when we don't know his takedown defense? Stuffing some of these very weak attempts just doesn't tell me enough. So I'm going to kick it over to you. What do you see happening here? Is it grappler or is it striker?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the striker in this case, in Justin Tafa. I don't think the UFC really did him any favors bringing him into the UFC. He's 3-0 when he makes his debut. Now his brother is like a glory kickboxing fighter, credited champion over in New Zealand. He's training with Mark Khan. He's training with, all the best guys, Tai Tuivasa. They got a great little camp atmosphere going on. But to be 3-0 making your UFC debut, that's a tough task. He also makes his UFC debut on a main card of a pay-per-view, UFC 243, Whitaker Adesanya. So big spot for the guy, but obviously the organization had a lot of faith in him and his striking abilities. But he goes out there, he runs headfirst into a counter, a shot from Yorgan de Castro, gets folded over, doesn't look any good. But the difference between that one fight to the Juan Adams fight a few months later, right? The difference already, you could see it's like this is a young MMA talent. Like this guy is building. He's only 27 years old. So as far as heavyweight goes, he's still got another meaningful 10 years left in his career. And I do think he's making those improvements. So he goes out there, he knocks out Juan Adams. That's his coming out party. and then he gets this fight against Carlos Felipe. Now, you talk about 100% takedown defense. Listen, he's only ever stuffed one takedown in his entire career, against Carlos Felipe. One takedown, 1-for-1, 100%. So that's going to be a problem against Jared Vanderaa if he does get taken down. But for some reason, I'm really playing into this narrative. Strong, powerful Samoan fighter. They got the low center of gravity. It's going to be difficult for Jared Vanderaa to get him down initially. He's going to at least have to stand with him for the first round and a half, wear him down, and then eventually be able to take him down where he can utilize some of his ground and pound. But if Tafa's got a round and a half to work with, he should be able to put Vanderaa away. Vanderaa has never been knocked out. He had never been stopped due to strikes in his career. And then the last fight against Sergey Spivak, that was the first time he was TKO'd. But Spivak utilized a much different game, right? He had 5 takedowns. He took him to the ground. He grinded him down, and then eventually was able to TKO. So if Tafa goes out there, unleashes some of his best shots, Vanderaa takes them, and Vanderaa's still standing, maybe I'm hedging out of my bet and going with Vanderaa if this thing hits late second round into the third. But I think Tafa keeps this as a kickboxing match. Yeah, Vanderaa is just far too hittable. The fact that a Harry Hunsucker wobbled him twice standing in the first 2 minutes of that fight is all I need to know. Tafa should be able to defeat him in a striking battle. It's up to Vanderaa to get this thing to the ground, and I just don't have enough faith in his wrestling to do so. So I'm going to agree with Tafa, but in the battle of two middling heavyweights that have low-ish upside in the division, I don't think this is one that I would have a ton of investment in, especially after looking at the line for Tafa. It's just too much for my blood, I think.
Yeah, so we're exactly on point there. Tafa to win. Very hard to put an actual hard number on where it should be, not knowing his takedown defense, actual, skill set. 1-for-1, 100% takedown D isn't enough data for me. Let's move it on here. Felicia Spencer, the pride of Canada, takes on Norma Dumont. Very interesting data points here. I'll let you give the X's and O's, and then I'll get into the numbers. How about that?
Yeah, this is a fight actually I like to look at the over. I think 2.5 is at -180. If I had to go the distance a little bit better than that. But essentially you've got two grapplers. So 145 pounds, there's not exactly a whole lot of women competing in the division. But Felicia Spencer, to me, is a top 3 or top 5 fighter in the world at this weight class. We know this girl's durable. My God. She goes 3 rounds versus Cyborg in her debut. Gives a good account of herself, as good as you can against Cyborg, who was the GOAT at the time. And then furthermore than that, goes 5 rounds with Amanda Nunes, again, solidifying herself as someone who can go the distance with the best fighters in the world, the best strikers, the most deadliest, potent finishers in the world, and live to tell the tale. Problem is, she's not exactly winning any of these rounds. She's not winning any of these exchanges. She's not winning a minute of any fight. She did cut up Cyborg. Outside of that, I mean, she's getting controlled. She's getting dominated. If you give her a lower level of opposition, she is high-level BJJ black belt. She does have good grinding top control. If she can get the fight to the ground, wrestling's just okay, but she's physical, man. She's a girl that never stops coming forward, will eventually try to grind you, get you to the ground, and that's where she shines best. So it's all about how you matchmake her. Giving her Cyborg, not going to work out. Giving her Amanda Nunes, not going to work out. Everything in between, or I guess I shouldn't say in between, they're both right at the top, but anything less than those two, I think that she's going to be perfectly fine. Now with Norma Dumont, Dumont comes in, she fights at 145 as well. She gets Megan Anderson. So Megan Anderson, if you want to play MMA math, Megan Anderson lasted like a minute and a half against Felicia Spencer, got caught in a triangle choke, non-competitive. You got Norma Dumont comes in against Megan Anderson, and again, non-competitive the other way. Megan Anderson just blows through her, knocks her out in the first round. So Dumont decides, I want to go down to 135 pounds. So she drops down to fight Ashley Evans-Smith, and she comes in at like 139.5. Misses weight, not a 135er. Looks good in the fight, but again, doesn't make the weight. So it's hard to gauge how would you have actually looked at 135 and how much that extra 4 or 5 pounds was actually beneficiary to her overall game. But she gets a win over Ashley Evans-Smith, low-level win, but over at least a seasoned veteran of the division. Good for her. Then she signs on the dotted line to compete again at 135 pounds in her most recent fight against Erin Blanchfield. Comes in, again weighs 139 pounds, 140 pounds. UFC nixes it. They're like, we're not doing this. Blanchfield is moving up a weight class, taking it on a week's notice anyways. So Dumont loses the fight, and now the UFC's forced her to go back up to 145 pounds. So as far as I'm concerned, her striking is not very good. It might be a little bit better than Spencer's, but this is two grapplers. I believe they're both BJJ black belts. Dumont might also have a black belt in judo, but Spencer's just going to grind her to the ground. I don't think she finds the submission in 15 minutes. I don't think she finds the TKO within 15 minutes. You're going to probably want to wait till you see the weigh-ins just to make sure that even though Dumont's coming back up, just to see what she looks like. But Yeah, I would say that this is a good spot for the over 2.5, a good spot for fight goes the distance. I'm going to side with Felicia Spencer. I'm also going to look at that Felicia Spencer by decision.
Okay. If we take a look at the data samples here, it is insane. Nothing looks worse in the UFC than Felicia Spencer's statistics, but that comes with fighting two of the GOATs, right? So,
Yeah.
very interesting here. She lands 3 strikes a minute while getting hit with 5.5. Not good. She's got a 45% accuracy, 43% defense, so 57% are getting through. That's brutal on paper. Grappling. She lands 0.6 takedowns per 15 minutes at a 10% accuracy and has 14% takedown defense. These are the worst numbers I've ever seen in the UFC, ever. So obviously you got to dive into it a bit more. And when you do, and you separate Nunes and Cyborg from the list, the numbers get a lot better. She was 0 for 15 in takedown attempts versus Nunes and Cyborg, but she's 2 and 4 against the other girls. And with those 2 takedowns, she got 4 minutes of control time and 2 finishes. Problem for me is that, yeah, against the GOAT, she didn't do well, and against everyone else, she did. But if we look at Zara Farron and Megan Anderson, is there any 2 fighters you can even think of that she could possibly face that are worse off their back, that have worse takedown defense? Not really, for my money. So basically, she fought the 2 worst grapplers and the 2 best fighters. And everything in the UFC belongs right in the middle. So this is very tough for me. And I look at someone like Norma Dumont, and I actually think she's a pretty decent fighter. I was impressed with her in her fight versus Ashley Evans Smith. I know she came in heavy, and I know she's supposed to be a grappler, but her striking was on point. She landed 94 in this. She got a knockdown. It was pretty good. If we look at Felicia Spencer, I'm going to go right back to her. She's landed in her 2 fights not against Cyborg and Nunes. She was 62 strikes for and 16 against. 2 takedowns, 0 against. 4 minutes of control time to 0. That gave her a 65% striking accuracy in those 2 fights with a 53% defense. Now remember, I was just saying this girl's got a 45% accuracy and a 43% defense. This bumps her up so significantly. I do think her numbers will fall somewhere in the middle in reality. But if we go over to Norma Dumont, this girl's landing 51% of her strikes from distance. 51% with heavy hands. And if we take a look at Felicia, even in just the 2 fights without Nunes and Cyborg, and she did have 65% striking accuracy, well, almost all of that was ground and pound. The girl was only 10 of 34 from distance for 29%. Because Norma Dumont has reasonable grappling, I think most of this fight will remain on the feet. That's just kind of the way these grappler versus grapplers end up sometimes. And for my money, with the durability of Felicia Spencer, I lean towards Norma Dumont by decision. I think that's where the value hides here. We're talking about a plus 275 for someone who's a reasonable grappler. I think is a little bit bigger of a girl. I know she tried to go down to 135, but Spencer should be at like 125 or 135. She thinks weight cutting is unhealthy, and I don't disagree, but she's not giving herself a huge competitive advantage by being, an undersized featherweight, I don't think. So although I do think she might be a little bit more talented and is totally live for a submission, on the feet, I don't think she can even hang with Norma. And if it spends enough time on the feet, I do think this goes over. And I do think that leaves Norma quite live at plus 275. I got to throw a couple peanuts on that myself. So we're opposite there. I can't blame anyone for taking Spencer, as she's only lost to the GOATs. But I do think there's a bit of a bright future for Norma, and I think her striking is better than people think. So we're about to find out and learn a lot about these two. I'm excited for that fight. Here's another one I like. We got David Dvorak, and we got Rulan Paiva. It's a good fight. It should be fast. These flyweights move quick. Paiva's kind of exciting. I think it's going to be a really good fight. Cody, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so I'm interested in hearing your take on this one because I hear that you're kind of big on David Dvorak, but I think this is a close fight, almost one that I would label as a dog or pass. And for that matter, you get Rolian Paiva. His path in the UFC has not been easy so far, and I think he's given a pretty good account of himself. He's still only 25 years old, so again, I think he's getting better. I think he's making improvements, but comes to the UFC off a win off Dana White's Contender Series. They send him all the way down under. He's taking on K. France. He's a big underdog. He's expected to lose. Judges are clearly not in his side. He goes out there and impresses everybody as a sizable underdog. Probably should have get the victory. They rob him on the scorecards. The fight with Rogerio Banterin, giving a good account of himself. He's pulling. He survives the early storm, weathers it, coming back on, probably en route to TKOing Rogerio Banterin. They stop it due to a cut. Now, just like that, he's 0-2 in the UFC. But as far as I'm concerned, the guy's been looking good. They've been doing him no favors. They've been giving him tough matchups, Kai Frost and Bontarine, and he's giving a good account of himself, but he just happens to be 0-2. So Mark De La Rosa, not in his league. You got to go out there. You got to put this guy away quick and show people that. He does exactly that. He knocks him out in the second round. Very nice performance from him. And then his last one against Zalga Zumagulov. Again, Zumagulov, a guy that I was high up on, former ACA champion, former Fight Nights Global champion, on a good run, solid record, good skills everywhere. Bit of a slow starter, a little bit loopy and unorthodox with his striking, but solid, and good cardio, keeps coming at you. Probably got robbed in his own UFC debut. Both guys are similar in that regard. But Paiva, again, he's only 25. He's making a lot of improvements. He's getting better every time out. I like what I see out of him. When I look at David Dvorak, it's not that I don't hate anything about him. He looks like a very young, exciting, legitimate prospect. But his entire run on the Czech regional scene, even though I'd like to say, man, he's looking good doing it, even though he does show great leg kicks, he does show great finishing ratio, there's not enough of what is he going to do against the next level, the higher level. So he's 2-0 in the UFC. But those two wins, Bruno Silva, the Bruno Silva fight's very competitive. It's 1-1 going into the third round. It's a close decision. He's able to win. It's a solid victory. Bruno Silva, another guy that's on this card. But Bruno Silva's 1-3 in the UFC. So being in a very close fight like that against that guy, okay, he's 28, he's 3 years older than Paiva. Where's his ceiling at? Where does he go beyond that? And then he gets a win over Jordan Espinoza. Jordan Espinoza no longer with the promotion, had very little success in the UFC overall. It's just not the highest quality of victory. When I look at Paiva, he's already fought Kai Frost, a higher level of opposition than anybody that this kid's fought already. He's already fought Bontarine, who we saw just beat Matt Schnell last weekend. BJJ black belt, very strong physical guy. He didn't beat him, but cut stoppage against him. He's competed with that level and looked good against that level. The Mark De La Rosa fight, I don't care too much. But then you go out there and beat a credible champion from Russia in Zalga Zumagulov, a tough Kazakh fighter. Those are all quality victories, more so than anything I've seen from David Dvorak. So when I watch the tape, I like what I see from Dvorak. He moves well, he's got this and that. But I got burned last week or 2 weekends ago on Ludovic Klein. Same thing. He's taking on Mike Trezano. Mike Trezano is a former Ultimate Fighter veteran. He's more savvy. He's more experienced. But as far as the tape, he just looks average all over the place. And Ludovic Klein, wow. Czech regional scene, looks good, solid record, been smashing through guys, head kick, nasty, beat Shane Young in his UFC debut. We're raving about him. We're getting pumped up. He's a minus 250 favorite, a little bit too much, but again, love what I see on tape. And he goes out there and he gets exposed by the more experienced, durable, legit guy. So that's something I could see here from Paiva. He's plus 115 when I got it. But then I see you're on Dvorak, so I'm like, oh no. Explain it to me. Is it the volume, or like where do you think his biggest upside here is?
Well, the volume is pretty similar between the two fighters. They're both at about 4.5 strikes a minute. But where the advantage comes from is the defense of Dvorak, I think. I know he hasn't fought the same level of competition, but his defense is solid. He's got a 63% defense, so 37 are getting through. That makes him a plus 11% on the striking versus expected. That's pretty good even against middling competition or not good competition. That's what you want to see. I think he does a good job controlling the octagon. He keeps his distance well and he controls the pressure. Paiva moving backwards, I don't think I like nearly as much as him going forwards. I don't think he's going to be able to control this dance. But what I found interesting is, like, even a guy like Espinoza, who's not a great fighter, but he's had competitive fights, he's just not winning them. He's performing so below average against a guy like Dvorak that it just is alarming to me. Here's Espinoza. His career, 52% striking accuracy, 57% striking defense. Against Dvorak, 30% accuracy, 50% defense. So, that's a lot less efficient, 29% less efficient. That's a big drop down, and if you look at Espinoza's strength of schedule, it's okay. It's reasonable. And his fight against Bruno Silva, kind of the same deal. Silva was 7% less efficient. So Dvorak is kind of surprising people, I think. What I really liked about him is he doesn't waste much energy. He's very calm and cool. His cardio's on point. He mixes his stuff in, but he's not overexerting. He's not overextending on his strikes. He just keeps control and he does what he has to do. Now, a guy like Paiva also mixes in his strikes. Okay, he's just a bit more hittable than Dvorak. And 51% defense is much different than 63% defense. And he's also 5% less accurate, not less, more accurate. Sorry. So if we look at the striking versus expected numbers, and these are two things or one thing that I really do like to look at, Paiva is a -6%, which means, he's technically a below average striker, or at least a little bit worse than who he's been fighting. And it's a reasonable schedule. I'll give him that. But a guy like Dvorak at plus 11%, that's a 17% advantage to Dvorak. Even though Paiva's better than his schedule, I still think he's got the edge on the feet. Now, we did talk a little bit about Paiva's schedule here, and you said, you're impressed with his win against Zumagulov. I thought he lost that fight clean. Like, he was outlanded 66-52, and he got taken down twice. Somehow he got the decision. I'm scratching my head as to how. So I look at that like a loss. He was in that fight with Bontorin, but that was a 3-minute fight. That could turn pretty quick. He did outland Kara France, and I think the Aussie crowd kind of screwed him over a bit there, but maybe the 2 takedowns from Kara France helped. I don't really know, but that's a loss that could be a win, like you alluded to. But his UFC debut, this is like the Dana White Contender Series Brazil, he was outlanded 105-81, and they gave him the nod. I mean, what the hell is that? So this guy's 3-2 in the UFC, but I'm looking at him more like 1-4, maybe 2-3 if you want to give him Kara France. It's so bizarre that 3 of his 5 fights, I think the decision is nuts. Horribly bad decisions. So I'm not exactly what to make of this kid. Now, he is obviously more talented than a 1-4 record. I'll give him that. What else do I have written down here for my notes? Sorry, I always leave something out. That's basically it. A clean win against Stella Rosa isn't enough for me to think you're super legit. He was in there tight with these other guys, and that's good. But Dvorak is in full control of his fights, and as he goes up the ladder, we're going to see if that lasts. But until it's broken, I don't try to fix it. I think Dvorak takes the center of this octagon, controls it, picks his shots, and ultimately just outpoints him. And I do think this one goes the distance as well. I don't think there's a whole lot of room for variance here. I really don't. This seems like a calm, cool, collected kickboxing fight to me. So at the end of the day, I just think we're talking about a 4.25-ish to 3.5 strikes a minute advantage for Dvorak, and each round a couple is enough to get it done. So that's my take on it. I just think he's slightly undervalued. Paiva probably valued correctly, but Dvorak, I think, with his efficiency, we're going to have to see where he stops going up in the rankings. For me right now, this guy, I think he can climb quite far. So that's my pick. I like Dvorak. I like him quite a bit, and I like the over. The next one up here, Jack the Joker Hermansson, Edmund Shabazian. Very entertaining fight. This one is so weird to me. It's like, statistically speaking, everything is there for Hermansson, basically. I think he's the better fighter. Why is the line so low on this? And the more I watch the film, the more I think, well, maybe Edmund Shabazian's hands are actually better than people think. They very well could be. But yeah, I don't know. This just feels like a step down in competition for Jack Hermansson. It's a very inviting line. Cody, what do you make of this fight? This one's a little bit too wild for me.
Yeah, I don't understand the line either. It feels like it should be Jack Hermansson at least 2-1. But you can get him at -150. And I think it's something worth having a look at. Edmund Shabazian, the UFC is just pushing him way too far, way too fast. He's only 23 years old, and yet he's already fighting guys like Jack Hermansson and his last fight against Derek Brunson. Like, man, these guys are legitimate top 5, top 10 contenders of the division. And a 23-year-old kid who basically has no notable victories on his resume is already getting pushed into those spots. So I don't know. I mean, yes, he's a kid that's trained his entire life. I mean, he's got good grappling. He's got solid wrestling. He's got good boxing. He was an amateur boxer. One of these guys that pursued those golden gloves. But he's not particularly great in any one area. It's just that he touches you and you go down. He's got great finishing instincts, great finishing abilities. Similar to a lot of these guys that come out of Glendale fight with Edmund. Coach Edmund Diverdian. Yeah, they're good strikers, but as soon as they get tested, it's like it doesn't come for them. As far as his regional show career, he fights just the worst level of opposition possible. That's what they do. They build these guys along. He looks really good beating them. He gets on the Contender Series. He looks awesome in the Contender Series. He beats Antonio Jones in 40 seconds. Again, all of his wins are 40 seconds, 1 minute. It's just another trend of that. Young, exciting prospect. The UFC loves taking these kids, pushing them along far too quick. So the fight with Darren Stewart, he wins a split decision. Terrible fight. He takes down Darren Stewart 8 times. He gasses out after a round and a half. He clings on to him. It's a bad UFC debut. Everyone universally is like, oh, damn, I really thought more of this kid. But he does get the victory. So now they give him Charles Burden. Wow, he knocks out Charles Burden in a couple seconds. So everyone's back on Shabazian. Beats Jack Marshman. Beats Brad Tavares. We know he's got that power. The thing is that we're overlooking his defensive liabilities, and that is the takedown defense. And so when Derek Brunson beat him, Derek Brunson exposed him. He exposed the ability that you can, A, take this guy down, and he exposes a second thing, which we already knew from the Darren Stewart fight, which is that he doesn't have good cardio. He gassed out bad against... When you knock out people in 40 seconds all the time, you've never fought in the second or third, fourth, fifth minute into a fight, it's way different. So the Darren Stewart fight's the first time he gets extended, and he gasses. The Derek Brunson fight is officially the second time he gets extended, and he gasses. But he also shows in the Brunson fight he can give up those takedowns. And the more tired he gets, the more, his game just absolutely falls apart. Now, Jack Hermansson could get caught. Jack Hermansson could get knocked out. We have seen it happen. His chin's good, but not great. But his takedowns are there for sure, man. Again, this is a guy in his last fight went 25 minutes against Marvin Vettori. Cardio, not an issue. Okay, got beat up the first 2 rounds, comes back, wins the third in that fight. So again, gonna fight all the way through, not tiring. Takes him down twice. Took Jacare Souza down 3 times when they fought. Out-grappled both of them. Solid grappling. Solid BJJ black belt. It's that advantage in the wrestling department. He needs to go out there, defend himself. He's super herky-jerky standing. That is the one advantage that Shabazian is going to have. He is the better striker. But he's got to be able to go out there and catch him. And when you look at the guys that have been able to knock out Jack Hermansson, you got Jared Cannonier, a former heavyweight, who is just a murderous power punching at 185 pounds. You got Thiago Santos, former 205-pound title challenger, who just has murderous power punching at 185 pounds. Those are the guys that have knocked him out. So do I put Shabazian on that level? No, I don't. And beyond that, Shabazian's only got 1 round to knock out Hermansson. After that, Hermansson should be able to tire him, get a hold of him, peel him to the ground, and that's where he's going to be able to have his most success. So I got to go with Hermansson. I like the money line. I also going to look at this one as a live bet opportunity. That even if Shabazian goes out there, is competitive in this first round, maybe even wins the first round, just by virtue of stuffing the takedowns and landing the better shot standing. Because again, much better striker. In that first 5 minutes, he might be strong enough, he might be fresh enough to stuff those takedowns. But in the second or third round, as he starts to fatigue, I think Hermansson takes over. The only other way that this kid wins is if he's only 23, going to make a lot of improvements, but he would have completely need to reinvent himself. And the fact that he's asking for a Brunson rematch, the fact that he just lost, got theoretically exposed, and asked for a top 10 opponent like Jack Hermansson, very bold, very bold. I just don't think that the strategy is going to pay off. So for that reason, I got to go with Jack the Joker.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you here. I know Shabazian's better on the feet, and I do agree, much stronger in round 1 and will fade pretty harshly, I think, the rest of the fight. And that's where I think the real value would be here. I do think Edmund could win this first round, and then you're getting yourself a nice live betting opportunity on Hermansson. And ultimately, I think that's why the line's low. The last thing you want to do is bet on a favorite that's not going to win round 1. That's a pretty bad spot to be in. And so I think that's mostly why the line is low. But as this fight goes on, you're going to see Hermansson get his takedowns, control, and possibly just submit this guy. The advantage is in the grappling. Shabazian's got his 58% takedown defense. Again, I guess Brunson's responsible for a lot of the negative on that, but it's not like he's fought great wrestlers, Stewart, Bird, Marshman, Tavares. Hermansson is a step above and is much more dangerous than a guy like Brunson, I would say, who's a very good fighter. So I do think Hermansson's going to find a way to win this, but I don't think it's going to be comfortable early at all. And I do think, just like you said, good live betting opportunity. If you can just kind of hang out and feel out that first round, you might actually get Hermansson at plus money. That would be that would be quite the opportunity. I don't want to say it's stealing, because when you're down one round with 2 left, it's not stealing, but that's very, very much likely how this is going to go. And if you can tie it up 1-1 with plus money on the favorite going into round 3 with the better cardio, you got to feel really good. So yeah, live betting alert. I think there's a good chance you get a better live line on Jack Hermanson, and he's just the better fighter all around. And that'll do it for our main card. Sprinkle a little on the prelims here. You want to talk some Bill Algeo and Ricardo Ramos? I think we should.
Yeah.
Okay, so
listen, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, let's kick this off.
Yeah, okay, so you're a guy that likes to look at those numbers, right? And I think that this fight is very telling because you're getting a near even money line fight. When I talk to a lot of people, there's good arguments for both sides, but I think Bill Algeo's got the skills in a lot of the departments. First of all, he's a BJJ black belt. I know both of them are. But Ricardo Ramos is known for these crafty back takes, and he's a good submission guy. And I think Bill Algeo is going to have him matched. I don't think he's going to be able to go out there and cling on to him and hold him down. Even if he does score with the takedowns, Bill's getting back up. Bill's wrestling, pretty underrated. He's going to be able to stuff these takedowns. Is he getting taken down by Ricardo Llamas? Yeah, okay, sure, Ricardo Llamas. Is he getting taken down by Spike Carlo? Yeah, sure, Spike Carlo, super strong, super physical. Both guys, he works his way back up. Both guys, it's very difficult to hold him down. And both guys are much better wrestlers than Ramos. So Ramos' entire ground game, being able to just consistently wrestle this fight to the ground and take advantage, it's not going to be on the table. It's what I want to talk to you about is by the striking. Bill Algeo just throws a tremendous amount of heat. He's always got pressure. He's always throwing. When he was on Contender Series against Brendan Luque, he loses the fight, but he lands 147 significant strikes while getting taken down 3 times. So imagine getting taken down. They're not scoring you significant strikes. It's when you get back up and you watch that fight, it's like, wow, this kid shows a lot of heart. Loses, but shows a lot of heart. I like it. Dana White, in fact, doesn't even give Luque a contract off it. Very competitive. No idea why. So now he gets brought in against Ricardo Llamas. He's A, short notice. B, making his UFC debut. C, taking on Ricardo Llamas, a former UFC title challenger. Fought for the belt against Aldo. He's a 12-time UFC veteran. He's like an 8-time WEC veteran. He's been around the block. He's been there, done that. He's fought in the who's of the game. Literally all the best guys. That's your debut. In that fight, he gives up 5 takedowns. Still lands 89 significant strikes. And then in the Spike Carlisle fight's the same thing. Gets taken on 4 times. Still gets up. Still scrambles. Still makes him work. Still lands 70 significant strikes. And wins that one. When you look at his strikes per minute, he sits at 6.8, right? With a 56% striking accuracy. When you look at Ricardo Ramos, it's less than half of that, almost on both fronts. He's landing 3 strikes per minute, which is half of what Bill's landing, and his striking accuracy is only 39%. All of his fights, his last fight against Lerone Murphy, he's knocked out. By the way, there's another thing I don't like about him. He just got knocked down in his last fight. He's supposed to have a solid chin. Lerone Murphy just blitzes right through him. Prior to that, it's low output. The Journey Newson fight goes 15 minutes. Journey Newson's a former amateur boxer. That could have been a striking battle for him. But again, 40 significant strikes. He seems to have low ring IQ when it comes to strike selection. Choosing to throw naked kicks, right? Or it's just something that's not set up. His combinations aren't great. He's one of these guys that'll throw 1-2. Even this Ayman Zahabi, everyone's like, oh, dude, spinning back elbow. Like, he just spammed it twice, and for whatever reason, Ayman bit on the second one and ran into it. But I think a lot of it's flim-flam technique. It's flashy, but there's not enough substance behind it. I think Bill is just going to overwhelm this guy 2-1. He's going to try to take Bill down. Bill's going to A, stuff him, or B, if he does get taken down, he's just going to work his way back up. Cardio advantage Bill, striking advantage Bill, wrestling advantage Bill, grappling advantage Bill, and he's only minus 120. So I got Bill Algeo, and if I was real greasy and wanted to chase a prop on it, I would say Bill by decision.
Okay. Yeah, see, I thought myself that Ramos probably has the grappling advantage. I mean, we'll find out on Saturday night. But otherwise, yeah, you said it. I mean, the output from Bill is over double. It's far more accurate. But he does eat a lot more on the return, right? He's got a 38% striking defense. Look at the names of the strikers he fought. None of them are good strikers. So when bad strikers are landing 62% against you, I do have some fears. And that's where I start to lean to the Ramos side. I know he only lands 3 a minute. He's getting hit with like 3.3, but he has fought the better strength of schedule. He is quite a bit younger, and these young guys do improve fight to fight. I didn't like what I seen in his last fight. Like you said, Murphy blitzed right through him. But this is a guy that's, landing 2 takedowns every 15 minutes at a 56% accuracy. And Billy here has got a 62% takedown defense, so enough of them are getting through. Now, Carlisle might be a better wrestler, but ultimately, I do think Ramos probably does land 2 takedowns. Whether he does something with them, I don't know. But yeah, this one feels like it's going the distance to me. And I think no matter how you slice this, because it probably will be a close fight, I think you probably want to take the prop by decision for either fighter that you're into. But I mean, I'm just going to put the slightest lean on Ramos. I think cardio-wise and grappling-wise, he might be slightly better. And I could be completely wrong on that. There's really not enough data for me to believe in Bill's cardio here. It could exist. I just thought he looked a little bit tired against Carlisle, and Carlisle has bad cardio. I don't think Ramos is going anywhere here. But yeah, his strike selection, I don't like. Like, what's with the not just naked kicks, but like, what the fuck is he doing where he's doing it like behind his lead leg? Like, what? I don't even know what kind of move that is, or if it could possibly hurt. Like, imagine taking an overhand right when you're delivering that fucking stupid leg kick. And it would be just like meme worthy. It's so stupid. And when this fight was originally booked, I actually bet on Ramos. And since then, I've changed my opinion on it. I don't think it's worth a bet. But yeah, I mean, it's super tough. I would take Ramos by decision if I had to pick this fight. Super close. I think we learn a lot about both fighters. And if this is a fight where Bill Algeo is looking really good, that might be the end of the line for Ricardo. He hasn't really beat anybody good, right? So where is this guy's ceiling? We're about to find out. Yeah, I think he looks a little bit faster. He doesn't have the volume, which could very well cost him on the cards, but he does have the striking defense, and it does have the takedown offense. So I think it's going to be very, very close, difficult decision. This one's going to be really fun, I think. Let's talk heavyweights here. Ben Rothwell, Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett, the shortest heavyweight fighter, I think, maybe in UFC history. The guy's 5'9", says he's 265 because he has to be, but I think he's probably cutting weight to do so. Guy weighed in the 300s in some of his previous fights. But, fairly athletic for a guy who's 5'9", 265. His last win there, he was breakdancing in the octagon after the victory. I did not expect to see that on the film. But here's a problem. When I'm watching his film, he doesn't really have good volume. There's a lot of mirroring. There's a lot of, a diving forward type of jab, not a lot of combination, and not a ton landing, big bombs, not a lot landing. Look at a guy like Ben Rothwell, and his volume was insane in his last fight. He threw 134 significant strikes in round 1, 93 in round 2 against Marcin Tybura. That's over 200 thrown. I mean, we talked earlier in some of these fights where a guy like Cody Garbrandt is going to throw like 45 strikes. This is crazy to see this kind of volume from a heavyweight fighter, and he's a pretty good boxer. I think he'll have no trouble at all finding his range against a 5'9" UFC debuting fighter. And I think he probably gets the knockout here. Unfortunately, the prop for inside the distance for Ben Rothwell is about -120, and I don't think there's a ton of value there. But this guy definitely not losing on the scorecards. He's going to have to get flash KO'd to lose this fight. And so that kind of leads me to believe there actually might be a little bit of value on this line, which I almost feel goofy even saying it. Imagine in 2021, you're like, yeah, I'm going to lay -330, 370 on Ben Rothwell. That is insane. But he's just so much more skilled than this guy. He's got a 7-inch height advantage, which, height we don't care too much about, but it allows you to fight longer and really step into some shots from range. And I think he's just going to do that all day, piece him up, throw in combination, and have to avoid the big hammer coming back at you. Probably pieces this guy up at about a 3-1 clip. Do you see any value on Chris Barnett or any value on Ben Rothwell? Is this an under and over? Like, how do you play this? How do you just lay -370 on someone named Ben Rothwell? That's really difficult for me to do.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that Ben Rothwell's a big favorite. If anything, I would say maybe the over 1.5 is something that looks decent to me. Just because Chris Barnett's fast, like he's got a Taekwondo base. That's why he's flashy. That's why he can do the backflip. That's why he can do the spinning hook kick. That's why like a lot of his strike selections are like these big explosive athletic moves. But he's got the body of a middleweight, man. He's 5'8", fighting as a heavyweight. And I don't mean just a heavyweight. He's fought in Japan and Korea at 340 pounds. You know, he's got a whole string of fights in the super heavyweight division. In fact, his last fight, which was a year ago, was at 300 pounds. So one, we're gonna have to see this guy make weight. He's taking the fight on short notice, and I'm pretty sure he walks around at 299 at the very least. So he's got 35 pounds to cut just to make the heavyweight limit on a week's notice. The fight might not even happen. If it does, we'll see what kind of shape he's in. But he's got one round. He's got one round to go out there and knock out Ben Rothwell. Problem there is that Ben Rothwell has got legendary durability. Short of Cain Velasquez, people do not knock out Ben Rothwell. He's a very, very durable guy. He's got a cast iron chin. So I think that Barnett, best case scenario, he comes out there, Huggy Bear lands a couple of his, his flashy strikes, but doesn't get the knockout over Rothwell. And then he's going to start to fatigue. Then he's going to start becoming, less mobile. Rothwell will be able to track him down, take him out. But for the first, Rothwell is one of the slowest heavyweights in the division. So for the first round and a half, I think Barnett staying to the outside against the much bigger man is going to be faster, is going to be able to avoid a lot of the damage. But after that, he's getting taken out. And I see that the over 1.5 for this fight is sitting at, was it minus 150 or 1.5?
It's minus 140, minus 150, depending on what book. But most of the books have 2.5 as the round prop with about minus 175 on the under.
Yeah, see, the under on 2.5, I would agree with. I just don't think that Barnett's got 3-round cardio in him. He did get knocked out by Alex Nicholson in 40 seconds a few years ago, but I mean, he's not even really competing all that much in MMA anymore. They needed a guy short notice. He agreed to step up. I believe he's still training at the Black Zillions camp, but he's got his own gym as well. I just don't think that he's fully committed. It is a winnable fight in the sense that they're heavyweights. Betting 3-1 on almost any heavyweight is a bad promise, especially considering Ben Rothwell's 39 years old, hasn't looked nearly as good since his run in 2016 in which he culminated in a positive test for steroids. He hasn't looked the same since then. He's very slow. So any heavyweight against him at 3-1 is going to be a risky proposition. But also just, this is going to be a much faster man than him. And ultimately, it's not going to matter. Rothwell's going to eventually track him. He's going to eventually fatigue him. He's going to eventually take him out. But I don't know how great I feel about the Rothwell at this line. I don't know how great I feel about that Rothwell by TKO. But that over 1.5, under 2.5 kind of area, I could see happening. So, yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I got Ben Rothwell, but I wouldn't get too much on, like, when you look at Tybura and you're like, oh, he had a lot of volume in that Tybura fight. He didn't look good in the Tybura fight. He lost it ultimately, and Marcin Tybura was just able to slow him down, out grapple him against the cage. And if you have a 300-pound man land on top of you, if for whatever reason Barnett's able to force this thing to the ground or able to just back him up, you've got a Ben Rothwell who was almost down 2 rounds against Stefan Struve before deciding to turn it on. Like, his best days are behind him, and so betting him at 3-1 is just, it's too much. Give me a prime version all day. I'll bet 4-1. I'll bet 5-1. But this version of Ben Rothwell, tough task. So that being said, I'm not betting against him, but I don't know that he's one of my anchors this week, despite the lengthy price tag.
Yeah, I haven't been able to pull the trigger on him myself, but I actually make the line higher. Like, I don't see how he doesn't win this fight at least an 80% clip. That would be minus 400. It's hard to see because I'm of the opinion that Barnett basically can't win a decision because he won't have the volume. His wrestling is pretty bad. I haven't really seen him have much success in that department. Rothwell's is okay, but if you just look at the strength of schedules, Barnett has never fought anyone close to Rothwell. Rothwell hasn't fought anyone this bad either in a long time. Ultimately, like, this will sound insane, but you can get props that are like not Barnett by decision at about minus 1,100, minus 1,200. That sounds stupid, I know, but like that's about the easiest 8% return on investment you will probably ever find. I mean, there's just no way. If he wins, it's going to be with a big KO shot. I think Rothwell works this guy over, like really works him over, but we'll have to see. And so I don't mind this under, but ultimately I'd rather just have Rothwell inside the distance. That's about minus 120. You can find a plus 110. That's Bet365 hanging a plus 110. Shit, maybe I should actually bet that. I think it happens more than 50% of the time, so there's probably some value there. But yeah, this is a weird one. I have no issue at all using Ben Rothwell in some parlay pieces for those of you that like the action. I don't think it'll be that popular, to be honest. I think most people look at him like a shitty heavyweight who's aging and just not worthy of that price tag. But man, the skill set, I mean, yeah, Stefan Struve was beating him and whatnot, but Stefan Struve's like 9 feet tall. Barnett's 5'9". Like, I just don't see how he can ever get inside the pocket where he needs to be and then land a good enough combination for someone with a cement head like Rothwell to even feel. So I'm all over Rothwell. Again, I think this line's probably short. It should be more like minus 450. I haven't bet on it yet, but I'm just talking it out here. Like, I know I'm supposed to fear a big chalk heavyweight Rothwell, but I don't think I'm going to be fearing it, and I think he'll probably be minus 600 after round one. So, yeah, I like that. I like that. Is there anything else in the prelims that you want to talk about, Cody?
Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about is Court Mcgee versus Claudio Silva. So this is a fight that I think that you can attack it from. I'm going to go with Court Mcgee personally, but I think you go with the fight goes the distance at minus 155, cover it from both sides. So what you have in Court Mcgee is perhaps one of the most durable guys the UFC's ever seen. In a career that spans back to 2007, he's been pro for 14 years. He's been knocked out one time. That's the only time he's ever been stopped. 19-10. He's got 29 pro fights, 10 of which are losses, and the only man to ever stop him was Santiago Ponzinibbio, who knocked him out 5 years ago, right? He's been in there with Jeremy Horn back when he really shouldn't have been in there, Costas Philipp, who was a murderous power puncher, obviously Ponzinibbio, Sean Strickland, who's on a roll right now, Sean Brady, Carlos Condit last time out. All I'm getting at is knocking him out, hell of a task. This is a guy that's got a well-documented drug history where he died of an overdose and was able to come back from that, went to rehab, got on The Ultimate Fighter, loses on The Ultimate Fighter. They bring him back as the wild card selection. Motherfucker wins the whole season. Like, he's one of these guys that always perseveres, but his biggest thing is durability. Now, he does get knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio, and once you know it, his subsequent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights all went the distance after the last time he got knocked out. Crazy thing. Now, Claudio Silva has knocked out one guy in the last 14 years. So Claudio Silva is not going to be the guy to knock out Court Mcgee. Now, Claudio Silva, 3rd-degree BJJ black belt, great grappling. Court Mcgee's never been submitted. Court Mcgee's his takedown defense, okay, but his submission defense, top-notch. And Claudio's his cardio is just brutal. My God, he gets tired quick. So what you see the last time out against Claudio versus James Krause, it's a lot of just Claudio shoots these desperation takedowns. He tries to slow down the pace of the fight. His striking's non-existent. His wrestling's non-existent. He's a bit of a guard puller. But if the submission doesn't happen, and he's not the first guy in 16 years to submit Court Mcgee, if he's not that guy, then yeah, this thing's getting rounds in. So as far as the fight goes the distance at minus 155, I think it's going the distance. If Claudio manages to get the fight down, he's got good top pressure. He's very heavy on top. He's tough to get off of you. He's the kind of guy that one takedown's all he needs because he'll just stay on top, stay heavy, do just enough so the ref doesn't stand him up and win the round. That's how he fought against Hot Chocolate Roberts, Danny Roberts, which is a terrible fight. But again, he knows how to just do a little bit, just a little bit from top control, enough to not get stuck and win rounds. But all it is banking in rounds. He submitted some lesser talent guys, but those guys got desperate. They decide to just scramble and get back up like the Nordine Taleb fights. Like, man, just take your time. Desperate, panics, tries to get up, gets submitted. That's not going to happen here. The Danny Roberts fights, like, why'd you even fall him to the ground? What were you possibly thinking? But again, Court's a savvy veteran. He's almost. This is going to be his 30th pro fight. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He's fought some of the better guys of the division. He's shown off durability time and time again. Even if he loses, he's not getting finished. This thing's going the distance, minus 155. But furthermore on that, I'm taking Court Mcgee. And to further that, I'm also going to go with the Court Mcgee by decision. I think he's going to be a better kickboxer. His takedown defense is going to be good enough. Physically, he's stronger. He's got a much better gas tank. And I could potentially bet this thing live as well. Claudio Silva is always good in the first round because, what UFC fighter doesn't have at least 5 minutes of cardio? But his game falls off rapidly after that. Watch back any fight. He either finishes you in the first 3 minutes or his cardio falls off rapidly. He's not putting Court in the first 3 minutes. He'll tire after that. Court will take advantage and get the victory. So that's another spot on the undercard that I like.
And with you on the live line opportunity, if Claudio gets a takedown early and some control time, I will be looking for Court Mcgee. Look, Court lands way more strikes per minute. That's kind of what this comes down to. He does it with a good defense, and Claudio's defense stinks. Silva here, he's got a 43% striking defense, so 57% are getting through, and you're only landing 42. That's a problem in the UFC. And Court Mcgee, like you said, he's a savvy veteran. He's fought a good strength of schedule. He's been in there with everyone that you could ever imagine. Long career. I will lean towards Court, but I was concerned about him getting taken down and controlled early. So I didn't make any moves. But yeah, if Court wins round one, like, I don't know how he loses the fight. If he loses round one, you're going to get a nice live line, but is he going to be able to win the next two? I think he probably will. But that's where it gets interesting for me, just because Claudio probably will gas, like you said, halfway through this fight. But if he wins up till that point, it's going to be really close on the scorecard. So for me, this is one I'm probably going to watch and maybe make a move live. But yeah, it's hard not to like Court Mcgee in this spot if you had to go pre-flop. Yeah, he lands about a strike a minute more than his opponents. He's fought great opponents. And Claudio Silva is even on that regard. Plus, guys are hitting him with way more accuracy. And yeah, he gets his 3 takedowns every 15 minutes, but that's at a 28% accuracy. Court's going to stuff a few. He's going to give up a few. But as long as there's not a ton of damage in those spots, Court should be winning on the feet. So I got no issue at all with your pick there. I like it. I think I like it. I might even be convinced to take it. So what do we got here? Is that your lock of the night, some Court Mcgee? What do you want to leave the people with if they have to make one bet tonight?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just take that over at minus 155 instead because it covers you both sides. If Claudio ends up winning this thing with that top control, like you mentioned, we're still going to be good. The fight's going the distance. If Court ends up stuffing it and grinding away, then you're good. We go the distance. If Court was like a bigger favorite, it'd be you and I have been having a lot of success with this. Is that you went with Luke Sanders. Luke Sanders is going to be a big favorite after the first round. You can get the opponent for solid plus money. Go against it. Last week we talked about Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. You can get before the fight starts, you can get Michael Chandler at plus money. After the first round, you can now get Charles Oliveira at plus money. You can just bank out and accept the money, right? It's a hedge tactic, but it goes both ways. I think this is going to be similar here. I think you could probably be able to get Carlos Silva favorite, and then after the first round, he's a big favorite. Court Mcgee, big underdog. Maybe not big underdog, but like good enough. Then Court Mcgee be able to pull this one through. But regardless, I mean, the UFC's done a good job of matching up to relatively lower level guys of the division. But I think come fight night, people will realize Court's held on to a job for this long because he finds ways to win. He's serviceable. He's a very serviceable gatekeeper type journeyman. Whereas Claudio Silva has managed to keep a UFC job this long because he fights once a year. The dude just never fights. His cardio's not getting any better. He's old at this point. I really can't get behind him. So yeah, Court Mcgee by decision. Maybe that would be my favorite play of the night. But yeah, regardless, I mean, I'm just way more excited about this week's offering than last week. I think that there's 4 or 5 solid little spots here. So looking forward to it anyways.
Yeah, love it. Okay, I'll go a little bit different here. I'm looking at the line movement here. No one has been steamed more than Norma Dumont. Carla Esparza in second, Court Mcgee in third. I like number 4 here, Ben Rothwell. I still think this line's short and it's going to keep growing. I can't imagine the buyback coming in this early on Chris Barnett. So I think we see over minus 400 here, and rightfully so. You probably got yourself about a 4 or 5% edge on Rothwell just because people think he stinks. Yeah, I got to make that bet. I haven't made it yet. But talking it over on the show has convinced me that I have to take a little bit of action on Ben Rothwell, whether it's inside the distance or not. That plus 110 at bet 365 sounds quite tempting.
Yeah, right? Talking with you, that's something I'm looking at as well, is that you can go Ben Rothwell as well, straight up money line. You don't have to chase a prop on anything, but you got Ben Rothwell money line. One thing that we're both in agreement here is Jan versus Carlos Esparza, go the distance. Certainly that over 2.5, you can hit the over on that. So if you were to put the over 2.5 in the Esparza fight with Ben Rothwell, and I know we didn't really talk about it, but Damir Ushmagulov, curtain jerking on the card. He's a minus 550 favorite for a good reason. He's on a 17-fight winning streak. Guy's very solid, good. And his opponent's moving back up to 155 pounds after a nasty botched weight cut in his last time around. So the UFC is not looking to do him any favors. those three seem like your safest plays. And because they're all 4-1, 5-1, parlaying them together would get you even money at the very least. But yeah, I like a lot of your takes as well, man. I think we're relatively on the same page, except for Rolian Pava, but we'll see come fight night.
Yeah, if Dvorak wins that, I'll fucking rip off my shirt like I'm the man, Hulk Hogan style. Just kidding. But yeah, I like Dvorak in that spot. I know you like Paiva. Very interesting to see how this one plays out. So yeah, we'll leave you with that. We like some Court Mcgee. We like some Ben Rothwell. We like some over in the Yan Xiaonan. Split on the main event, but we do agree that you could probably find a better live line later. There's all kinds of spots if you want to make money. Keep your eyes peeled. Keep the live lines open. Enjoy the fights. They're free on ESPN this week. Thanks for joining me, Cody. We are out of here.